Well, hello everybody. This is Rich for February 2024 Goodwill Finds Extravaganza. And while I don't really listen to classical music very much, I do have an ability to appreciate it. And at my local Goodwill, goddamn, do they have super clean, hard to find stuff. And there's things like this for the Columbia Record Club. These are promos that were sent out in the 50s and 60s, I believe. And this one here is the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra doing two sides of Schubert, and it looks unplayed, which is just fucking phenomenal for 75 years. So that's part of why I love collecting records is I get to feel a bit like an archivist. And please excuse the lighting. This is a basement. Next one up is I believe it's a disco record that I had never heard of, but looked really interesting. And you can't go wrong for $2. Sometimes you'll find good disco breaks or funk breaks on these disco records that I never heard of. That art is a trip too, but gonna listen to it. Here's one I am familiar with that was happy to find for $2. It's Magnets from the Vapors. I love new wave, adjacent punk rock. Definitely one from the 80s I'm glad to have. And here's one I'm not really familiar with other than the parties involved. We have Andy Summers and Robert Fripp and I Advance Masked. I imagine this is a pretty ambient, guitar laden adventure. Yeah, I'm going to look into that one. And because sometimes I am prone to grab the weird on site just because it's weird, I have a really growing collection of strange oddities. And this one doesn't fall under the super weird, but it's a little odd. It seems that this dude sang at resorts and on cruise ships, and I think it's all standards, etc. But I mean, and he autographed it as well. What a gentleman. I don't know if he ever released anything original. I did look it up a few weeks ago, but didn't find much. But more power to him. He's doing the damn thing back then. And this one here squarely falls under my very growing collection of Christian evangelists, and the crazier they look, the more excited I get to buy the record. I may never listen to them, but fuck, if I'm going to have a whole wall someday full of crazy televangelists on my wall, just because, man, that dude looks like you throw a little makeup on him, he could be the Joker. Awesome. Had to cop it. Here's one that I had to ask some friends about because I'm not familiar with this group, although I've seen their records. I just haven't listened to it. But I might have bought this one just on the strength of the album art alone. That's pretty interesting stuff. And a gold stamp promo for whatever that's worth to people, but it's also white label. Gonna give it a listen. I believe it's kind of proggy rock. I don't know. We'll find out. If I love it, I'll report. And because I really love the compilations and really niche records that you can find at a Goodwill, this one jumped out right at me. This may as well have jumped in my fucking pocket. If I had a sampler, I'd be all over this one, man. There are some decent breaks and things worth looping. It's a fun listen. Definitely wouldn't call it genuine jungle drums if it's by Morton Gould and his orchestra, but it is drums, and there are some interesting patterns. And that's a $2 buy every day. And so, besides the penchant I have for wild-eyed Christian evangelists and preachers of various stripes, I also have an intense weakness for demo records, demonstration records from the 50s and 60s. Attempts to exercise your stereo, see what it can really do. And they are always so cheap, and they are, you're only meant to play them once or twice, I imagine. So they're always in perfect or often unplayed condition. Whether it's just orchestral music or speaker exercises and bass cycles and etc., I am generally going to buy them. The covers can be kind of cheesy. I think that adds to the charm. But I really enjoy these things, and I swear to you, by this point, I probably have 50 of them. So it's going to be a nice collection overall someday that'll impress all of about fucking nobody, but I'll be sitting there with a smile, loving it. Although I am really no fan of jazz, this sampler here looked pretty interesting for a couple bucks. I'm aware of, Freddie Hubbard, George Benson, certainly, and Grover Washington Jr. I'm going to give this one a pop. I'm going to see what's on it, see if it's worth it. Maybe I'm slowly getting used to the idea that there might be a bit of jazz in my collection that I play, but I seem to be fighting it tooth and nail. And almost here at the end for this February Goodwill finds is one that really jumped out at me again. This is called Mexican Madness, Mariachi and Brass. It's a 3 LP box set, again with probably the whitest conductors you could possibly imagine, but anybody can read this music and play it, maybe not with the requisite amount of soul. And I am from San Bernardino County in California, and I lived for many years in Oxnard, California. Those are both places with excellent Hispanic representation. And I often had next door neighbors partying up with mariachi music. And I'm telling you, I did not hate it. It's fucking catchy. So I'm glad to have this one. And these also look extremely unplayed. I'm going to play them. And this is another one. Looked really interesting. I'm never going to be a guitar player with these dumb fingers I have, but folk guitar with Laurel Weber. It's guitar lessons on record. I don't really know how you go through this without a visual aid, but it looked cool. It's from the 60s. Very small pressing, I imagine. I've never seen it before. Probably worth all of 25 cents in the market, so I'll keep it. Just another interesting thing. I've got a collection of base vinyl ephemera of just the strangest shit. And it's part of my collection that I enjoy the most. And there's absolutely no explanation for it other than I'm a weirdo. Lastly is one that I am quite familiar with. And this is Happiness is Being with the Spinners. And although there are great songs on this one, nothing, to my mind, can touch the brilliance of Song 4 on side 1, Rubber Band Man. My dad used to love that song, so I would hear that a lot when I was young. Anytime that would come on the radio, he would make the car dance, go back and forth with the beat. Probably not very safe, but it was the 1970s, 80s. You can get away with things like that. He probably had a Budweiser in his lap, too. It was a different time, y'all. But Rubber Band Man, still, I think, one of the finest funk joints ever. So, thanks for watching. I hope you saw some cool stuff, and man, I'm looking for other people's Goodwill videos. I'm interested. The quality and variety will very often have to do with where you live. I live in Podunk, Pennsylvania, so we are quite folk and country and definitely Christian music wealthy here in our Goodwills. And I've been to Seattle Goodwills where they had incredible punk and alternative and pop records and even a lot of good funk that I wish I'd have bought. And LA has some great Goodwills. New Jersey had an incredible Goodwill by where we lived for a couple of years. So although you are a prisoner of your location, it doesn't mean you shouldn't go and check it out. It's a good spot, and they always deserve your support. They do good work. They help people out. And I tell you, man, I was talking to my wife just yesterday when we were there, is if it was close enough to walk to, I would absolutely work there. Just awesome stuff. So thanks for watching. Show me some of your Goodwill finds. I'm really interested. Let's keep this going. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you all later.